Welcome to Pixel Therapy, the video game podcast where we look at the games we play through the lens of the player, where what you play is just as important as how you play it, and where emotional intelligence is a critical stat. I'm your co-host, Jamie, pronouns she, they.
And I'm your co-host, Spencer, pronouns they, them.
And this is Pixel Therapy. It's been a little bit of a minute since we had our last public episode.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, everybody. It's been a summer, man. A lot going on. I feel like I've lived about 6 years in this summer.
Yeah, it's a long summer.
Long summer. But let's start as we always do with our Patreon shoutouts. This is our special thank you to everyone who subscribed at our Patreon name in the credits tier. So a very big thank you to all the folks hanging out with us there. That is Genevieve, Lindsay, Pim Hatai, CD Mess, Ava, Alexis, and new person alert, Thomas. Thank you,
hey, Thomas.
Thanks for joining the crew. And thank you all for your continued support of the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. Remember, folks, if you want to get your name in the credits, you can hop on over to patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can subscribe for free to stay up to date on all things Pixel Therapy, or for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Patreon exclusive monthly bonus episodes. We have been having some fun with those this summer. Our last couple of ones have been a little silly, but hopefully y'all have been enjoying them. We did some gamer-themed icebreaker questions back in July, and learned a little bit about ourselves and each other. And then again decided to go the introspective route and took some gaming BuzzFeed quizzes in August. And found those to be a lot less introspective. Did not learn anything about myself, except that maybe I shouldn't be taking BuzzFeed quizzes to learn anything about myself.
Yeah, wow.
But we had a fun time. And aside from just those 2 episodes, there is a whole backlog of bonus episodes to catch up on at that paid tier that stretch all the way back somehow to fall of 2020, because we've been doing this for a while. It's crazy.
Time
almost
flies.
4 years.
In the blink of an eye.
We are approaching our 4-year anniversary within the next couple of weeks.
To celebrate our 4-year anniversary, we're going somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that's like specifically to celebrate the 4-year anniversary.
It is now.
It is now. Spencer said it, so it is. Yeah, we're going to be at PAX this week. Yeah, this episode is coming out on Tuesday. We're going to be at PAX Thursday through Thursday afternoon through Monday, through the whole thing, Friday through Monday. So if you're going to be at PAX, send us should do a little tweet, Patreon message. I don't know. Let us know you're there. Maybe we'll meet up.
Send us your Seattle Rex.
Yeah, Seattle Rex. We need to know where to go eat specifically.
Yes,
just eat. I'm not going to have energy for anything else.
Yeah, that's our main goal.
Main goal is to eat some good food. So let us know what's good to eat. Let us know if you're going to be at PAX West. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you there. If you're looking for other ways to support the show, though, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And you can also check out and subscribe to the Pixel Therapy Pod YouTube channel, where you can catch us streaming our Let's Play series, Pixel Therapy Plays. We've got our most recent playthroughs of Tales of Kinzera Zhao and Lorelei and the Laser Eyes up there. And we'll be starting a new series in September once we finally have just a fucking second to catch our breath. So be sure to stay tuned at youtube.com/@pixeltherapypod. Like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon to get notifications every time we go live here. And of course, after all that, know that no matter how you choose to engage with us, we appreciate you being here all the same.
Yeah.
All right. It's time to get cozy. Pull up an armchair. Feel free to lie down on the couch. And let's talk about our feelings. Spencer, how are you this fine Monday evening? Spencer.
Have you watched Yuri on Ice?
No.
Oh,
is this an anime? I feel like I've heard of this.
It is an anime.
Okay.
About a 24-year-old man named Yuri.
Were you telling me about this? Maybe I heard it from you. I'm like, I think I've heard of this.
I don't think I did.
Are you sure?
I mean, if I did, it was like I hadn't even seen it yet, and I was just blindly recommending it. But like,
that might have been it. I feel like you might have been telling me, like, I'm going to watch this. Have you seen this? I've heard this is good. Yuri on Ice. I'm Googling it now.
Yuri is a 24-year-old ice skater, competitive ice skater.
On the verge of retirement?
on the verge of retirement until his idol, the 28-year-old Victor, I forget his last name. He's like a very successful ice skater, and he like decides to become Yuri's coach.
Okay.
And it
And they
is
kiss?
okay, so it's primarily a sports anime,
Okay.
but there are
Well, Google says it's
elements.
a boys' love.
Boys love, but it's not it's all through the relationship, and like
Mhm.
there's not like kissing's not the point. The point is the
Well,
artistry on the ice.
I'll decide what the point is.
Well, okay.
No, I'm just
Would I have loved to see more kissing? Yes. Am I still crying thinking about the gorgeously animated ice skating sequences?
Uh-huh.
Also, yes. And
Okay.
it has got to be one of the best romance. Oh my god, I'm floored. I watched the
Okay.
whole thing in 2 days. It's only like
Okay.
12 episodes, but
Okay. Is that it? It's done? 12 episodes and it's done?
it is done. It ends in a way that it's not like a cliffhanger or anything. I think
Mhm.
there was talk of a second season, but
Okay.
it got canceled before it could come together.
Okay. But it
So
ends in
all
a
of us
satisfying
here today
place.
listening to the podcast
All of us.
need to go start streaming it immediately,
Where
and then
can folks
hopefully
stream it at
we
home?
can cause a renaissance of the Yuri on Ice fandom. It's on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
Or you can just email me and I'll give you a password.
Send your emails to pixeltherapypod@gmail.com and
Oh my
Spencer will hook you up with their personal Crunchyroll
god.
deets.
Oh my
That
god, it's
is
just
amazing. What an
so
offer.
good. Oh my
What an
god.
offer.
Oh my
It says the other
god.
guy's name is Victor. Yuri and
Yes.
Victor? Is
Yuri
that
and
okay?
Victor.
Okay.
Yeah. Were you even listening when I was
I'm
talking?
sorry, I
Just
thought
kidding.
you were struggling to remember his name, but I
His
guess I
last
misunderstood
name.
his last name. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was trying to Google it and then getting caught up on the boys love thing
I
and
know,
ice
the thought of
skating.
potential kissing just really threw you off, I get it.
It did, yeah. My brain just short
Yeah.
circuited, shut down. That was the only thing I could think about.
It
Well,
was
I'm
honestly
really
too
happy for
just
you.
refreshing to have, an anime romance that's feels more age appropriate to me, like,
Mm,
I don't always feel great watching, like, "Oh, this is like a high school romance." I'm like,
uh-huh.
"Okay, like, what else is there?" There's Yuri on Ice. So, yeah, that's how I am, basically. I'm
I was like, how are
just
you doing? Let me just tell you about this thing that I watched.
I mean, I have to say, like, one of the things that the series is lauded for is that, like, the sequences of the folks, doing these ice skating, dances. I'm sorry,
Mhm.
anyone who knows about the skating fan sport fandom, but, like, all of the movements are, like, very realistic, and there are,
Uh-huh.
like, people who have actually in real life, like, recreated the choreographies done on the
Okay.
show, and so the animation is very faithful to the sport, and I just thought that was really cool too.
That is cool.
So anyway, great show. How are you?
I feel like I should similarly just answer with some media I've been
Oh, great.
enjoying because yeah, I'm kind of exhausted generally.
Yeah,
We'll just say that's how I am is exhausted.
great.
And what I've been doing with my time, actually, I don't even have a great answer to this either. Staring at the walls.
Oh, no.
No, I've done some things. What have I done? I played this game called Creatures of Ava. It's a fun
Oh,
little indie game.
mm.
You're like a scientist in like a far-flung future society. You go to this planet that the science team has identified as like dying from this infection called the withering that's
Mm.
like killing off the local flora and fauna. And so your job is to go down to the planet and gather up a bunch of animals like Noah's Ark style and
Aw.
try to save them along with the indigenous people who are there. However, the indigenous people don't really want you to be doing what you're doing. And so the game
Mm.
has like a really interesting dialogue between you, the main character, as the scientist, your motivations. They give the main character like a really good or like really interesting, I thought, like backstory as to why she's doing what she's doing, why she cares so much about this. The company that she works for is interesting, and they reveal themselves to be, shady as things go on.
Yeah.
And then the indigenous people are all portrayed like really um I thought like, there's a large variety of perspectives and the conversations that play out between them and the main character. It all like it could have been done in a way that felt very like, I don't know,
Mhm.
preachy or too on the
Yeah.
nose, but I feel like it's all done in a way that like reads as really human and good. It's just a really good game. The ending was very emotional. I felt like I learned a little bit about myself
Wow.
and um yeah, it was good. It was a good game. It is kind of buggy.
Okay.
Definitely, I think probably made by a smaller team.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure. Like the game just came out within the last few weeks, so I don't know if folks wait on it for a little bit, if some of the bugs will get sorted out. But it's on Game
Yeah.
Pass. Folks have Game Pass. That was how I played it. Definitely worth checking out. It was like maybe 10 hours or so. A
Nice.
lot of fun to play. A lot of cute animals. You can take pictures of them. You can play the flute for them, and then they'll follow you around, and then you can pet them. And there's an
Aw.
achievement for petting the dog, which is if you pet every animal in the game, you get an achievement called "You
Nice.
Pet the Dog."
I love that.
um, so yeah, it was a good time. Good time. Creatures of Ava. Folks should
That
check it out.
sounds great.
Yeah, it's a good
Uh,
time.
I thought there would be an achievement in Kunitsu-Gami where if you petted all of the animals that you would get one.
Yeah, me
So,
too. I thought that was
think
coming too.
about that, Capcom, for the next update.
Yeah, missed opportunity for sure. For sure, missed opportunity. But that, you've teed me up well for a little transition here over to our main topic tonight. We're gonna be talking about Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess, which is a game that we both played
Mhm,
to
mhm.
talk about for this episode. I don't know why I said that so awkwardly. I do podcasts for
We
almost 4
both
years, apparently.
played it.
We both played it. Well, we did play it. What do you mean? What do you played
I
it?
know, 'cause the way you said it at
I know. It made it
first.
sound like we didn't actually play. It's like, we both played it. Wink,
Wink.
wink. We definitely both played it. I don't know. Remember my headline. Exhausted.
Yeah, yeah.
So Kunitsu-Gami, Path of the Goddess is an action strategy game developed and published by Capcom, as you mentioned already. It was released on PlayStation, Xbox, and PC earlier this summer on July 19th, and it's been well received with very positive reviews on Steam and an 82 average score on OpenCritic. The game is set in feudal Japan with a narrative heavily inspired by Japanese folklore. Players control a warrior named So, who is tasked with the protection of the divine maiden Yoshiro as she performs a dancing ritual to purge and cleanse the local villages of a defilement that has taken over. Just
Mm,
let that
mhm.
sink in.
Just think about that, yeah.
Just think about that, would you? The gameplay is divided into two main parts. You've got a daytime cycle in which So can explore the village, find and rescue villagers, and build various defenses, and then a nighttime cycle during which So and the villagers must defend Yoshiro from waves of evil spirits, who are inspired by Japanese yokai, and in the game they're referred to as the Seethe. As part of that defense process, the villagers can be assigned one of 12 masks that are unlocked throughout the game that determine their role, such as, for example, you can have a woodcutter who does like quick melee attacks, or you could have an archer who
Mm,
attacks from a distance and can target airborne enemies. And then 10 more different ones that I'm not going to sit
yeah.
here and list. The results this really fresh and unique gameplay experience that combines elements of tower defense and real-time strategy games, allowing So to assign and reassign villager roles as well as position them on the map, while also having traditional RPG elements because So is directly controlled through a third-person perspective and can engage in combat directly and has their own unique skills and upgrade tree. So
Mhm,
that
mhm,
is my
mhm.
concise overview of Kunitsu-Gami Path of the Goddess, a little book report that I get to write for every podcast
Beautiful.
episode. Thank you. Spencer, I want to know, how much of the game did you play? What did you
Mm.
play it on? And what are your high level thoughts on the game?
Well, you forgot to mention the most important mechanic of the game.
What's that?
You could go to Yoshiro's tent and feed her desserts and watch her
Is that
eat
the
them.
most important? Is that the most important? I feel like that's comparable to me, like focusing on the boys' love when you wanted to talk about the ice skating just a minute ago. You remember when that happened? You remember when they had that conversation and you were like,
Sorry about
actually,
that.
Jamie, stop derailing. I'm here to talk about the ice skating. And now here I am talking about all the complex mechanics of the game. And you're like, you forgot to mention the fact that we could feed our girlfriend desserts.
And yeah, and it's amazing. And I love that.
It really is amazing, though.
It is amazing. Okay, how much have I played? I've played like 95% of the game. Well, here's the thing.
I think you can give yourself that 100%.
Okay. Well, I went to Jamie's house. For those of you listening at home, I went to Jamie's house and
Well, for
watched
everybody, I think
them.
even if they're not listening at home, if you're listening in your car, this is also for you. I just wanted to
Also for
clarify.
you. I got to enjoy watching them get through the last like slog of the
You helped.
final
You
boss
helped.
battle. Okay, that's
You
true.
beat one of
That's
the final
true.
fights.
Oh, we did it together with the
We did
power
it
of
together. Yeah,
friendship.
we passed the
Oh, that's
controller back and
sweet.
forth
Yeah, we did, just like old
like little
times.
kids at a sleepover.
Yeah, it was like really fun. But okay, I played it on PS5. You played it on Xbox,
Because this is also
which,
on Game Pass.
if I can pat myself on the back a little bit, I managed to play it with a totally different controller key
Oh,
map
yeah.
situation.
Yeah, no, pat yourself on the back. It was very impressive. I was stuck on this fight and I was like, Spencer, do you want to try it? And they're like, oh, ha ha ha, I suppose. And then they fucking kicked ass.
Like,
They
I don't know what happened. I like blacked
were
out
like, I don't know the
anyway.
buttons. And I was like, well, just don't pay attention to the on screen prompts. It's the same buttons. It's just they have different names.
I intuitively
You
felt
did
my
it.
way through the level.
Yeah.
And my high level thoughts are that I love it so much. Like, um, this is really not my type of game.
Yeah.
Like when I saw tower defense, I was kind of like, oh, that sounds stressful. Because really it's like Yoshiro is the tower, and we have to fend off hordes of monsters all night long and try to
Yeah.
survive until morning and try to make it through the rest of the town. And you're getting Yoshiro has a health bar and it's like days and nights are passing until you purge the village. And so it's like you gotta manage her health and try to keep fending them off. And I think they get harder as each day passes. So it's very stressful, not typically my
Yeah.
cup of tea. But there was something I couldn't really put my finger on about what made this game so special. And we'll get into this later, but I think I found the answer to what made this game so special. And yeah, I can't wait to get into it
The
more, but
desserts.
that's a part of it. I think too, like the fact that you are playing a canonically non-binary, like, I mean, like they uses they them pronouns, and you're like this spirit warrior who's constantly wearing a mask. Something about that, of course, I found very romantic. I think there's some Link vibes to that. But anytime there's a sort of silent protagonist, it's also kind of easy to sort of project your own emotions and lore and kind of like, what does it mean when I give my girlfriend desserts, like what's going on here? So there was plenty for me to run with in my BL infested mind. So
Well, yeah, I'll be interested to hear your take on some of that stuff then. Yeah, for me, yeah, like you said, I was playing it on Xbox. We finished the game at the same time, basically. And I also really like this game, despite this being something like pretty unique for me. I was very into balloons back in the day, if that counts as being into tower defense. I don't know if folks remember balloons.
what's
Like a
balloons?
It was like a little browser-based game,
Mm.
tower defense game. Balloons Tower Defense. Yeah, I don't know. I
Is
don't
it
know why
like
it was
Plants
called
vs
Balloons.
Zombies?
No, although I was also
Okay.
really into Plants vs Zombies. No, Balloons is more like there's like a path that the enemies are gonna take to get to your
Mm.
base, and you set up defenses all along the path to try to whittle them all down before they get there. Um, but yeah, anyway, aside from that, I don't really seek out tower defense games or even strategy games a lot of the times. Like, I'm always intrigued by strategy games, but usually, like, I'm just feel like I'm not smart enough and don't end up
Mm,
getting into them, or
mm.
they, like, move a bit too slow and I struggle. I mean, even something like Baldur's Gate, I struggled to stick with it because the combat was just slower
Yeah,
paced, and it felt
yeah.
like it took too long to get through battles. So, yeah, I was kinda surprised. I saw trailers and stuff for this game, thought it looked cool, and with it being on Game Pass, it was just a really easy thing to be like, "Alright, I'm gonna give this
Mm.
a shot," and got, a few towns in, a few levels in, and a few hours in, and then messaged Spencer and was like, this is hidden. You should check this out." And the next thing I know, they're like, "Oh my god, I'm stuck on this boss."
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, "Oh, you got it. Great. Let's keep
Yeah.
going." And
Yeah.
then yeah, stole my heart away, and here we are.
Oh,
I played the
yeah.
whole game, and we wanted to talk about it on the podcast.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, let's start getting into what makes this game so special. So, like, the biggest thing with Kunitsu-Gami is resource management. I felt like despite the game, like, billing itself
Yes.
as a tower defense game, really the number one thing that it is a resource management game.
Mm,
You are getting, you have a limited number of these things called crystals, that you start out the night with, and then you can get more by running around the village, that you start the day with. You can get more by running around the village that you're in, but at a certain point, the crystals are going to be what you use both to uh have. So in each village, Yoshiro is like trying to walk down this path, dance down this path, I should say,
mhm,
to get to a Torii gate, and then she'll cleanse the Torii gate. And early on in the game, each town only has one Torii gate that you need to get to. You cleanse it, you're done, like you beat that level. But as the game goes on, it gets to the point where there's basically always at least two Torii gates that she'll have to
yeah,
get to and cleanse. And the path that she has to go down becomes far more complex. It becomes
mhm,
longer, but it's rarely the sense that you're going to be able to start the level, walk her all the way to the Torii gate before night falls, and then you're on to the next thing. Like, she's always going to have to stop somewhere along the path, and you're going to have to defend her overnight. And she won't move overnight. She's going to stop. The Seed are going to attack. You have to defend her while she stands still. And then soon as morning comes again, she'll continue on dancing towards the Torii gate. But in order to get her to walk down that path, you actually have to spend crystals to, like, I don't know, so, like, takes their knife
give
and, like,
her
slices.
power. Yeah,
Yeah, like,
purify the path for her, yeah.
yeah, like, purifies the path for her, and then she goes dancing, and she dances pretty slow, but it's pretty
Oh, so
cute.
slow. Yeah,
She's yeah,
mhm.
very slow dancing all the way down the path. But so you have to spend the crystals to open up the path for her to actually go. Um, and then you also spend the crystals to assign roles to the villagers. So early on in the game, the first couple of roles you unlock, I already mentioned, you get that woodcutter and that archer. Those are like 50 crystals each to make somebody one of those roles. But eventually you unlock something like a sumo wrestler who is
Mhm,
basically a tank kind of character who's going to aggro a lot of enemies towards them. They don't necessarily do a lot of damage, but they'll aggro enemies so the enemies aren't attacking Yoshiro or somebody else. They'll pull the enemies in
mhm,
towards themselves. They're like 350 crystals. So very
yeah,
quickly you start to run out of crystals if you're not constantly managing that resource and balancing is it better to spend more crystals on getting Yoshiro further, or should I spend
mm,
more crystals on making my troops stronger? But then she's not going to get as far. I'm going to have to survive more nights, and finding that balance in the
yeah,
game. So I thought, yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of like
yeah,
the main thrust of the game for me. What stood
yeah.
out for you in the gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I'm I'm so, like, story focused, so I feel like, so during the day, it's like even getting those troops that Jamie was talking about is like you've gotta, traverse these deserted villages that are corrupted by this sickness and these like evil organic looking kind of like nasty demonic growths, and you'll find villagers trapped in these cocoons, and
Mhm.
you have to purify them and release them in order to generate like once they're out they can fight for you and you can assign them roles. um and so, like, during the day, I would get I would be like, oh my friends, I have to like get them out. And so it was like just this really charming kind of world building of like, you know, kind of regaining balance with nature and kind of like sort of bringing light back to these dark. I don't know. It's not like that. It's not like anything crazy unique, but there was something really touching about like cleansing people, and they like burst out of the cocoon and they're like and
Yeah.
they get up, and something about, bestowing a role upon them, and the fact that they're not like me, they're not like immortal spirit warriors, but they're ready to pick up and fight to defend their village. Like, I found it all very charming, and you can cleanse animals as well. There are animals running around corrupted, and you can cleanse them, and they'll go and run and sit with Yoshiro during the day. There's something really sweet about that too.
Yeah.
It's just like for a game without dialogue, other than in those night sequences when you're fighting, if an enemy gets too close to Yoshiro, like pretty much the only dialogue in the game is her calling out to you for help. Like, she'll
Mhm.
say like, "So help me," or like, "They're
Mhm.
getting closer." And it honestly, that being the only piece of dialogue, it really punctuates those moments of,
Mhm.
kind of, like, intensity, and I'd always joke, like, when my partner would be watching me play, and I'd be like, "I'm coming, my love," like um, like, I think in despite the lack of dialogue, there is so much being communicated in the body language and in the setting and in the interactions that the player has with the villagers. Like, I think so one other aspect of the gameplay is you can get these what are they called? The Suba guards and Mazo talismans. And the Suba guards are like guards on your sword that you can switch out to give you different abilities, special moves. Like
It's kinda
one causes
like a super attack or
like
like
a super
an
attack.
ultimate attack kind
Yeah,
of a thing.
exactly. And the Mazo talismans are more like they're these little statuettes that you carry with you, and each of them might bestow upon you some kind of buff or ability. And most of them are combat focused, like or like, oh, So's health is doubled, or the strength of the villagers is increased, or Yoshiro moves faster on the path to get to the next gate. But some of them are like everywhere So walks, flowers bloom, or one you can equip where it's like villagers are able to like say hi to you when you have this one equipped. And so it's like I just thought that was really a really touching aspect too of like not everything is about just getting better at killing monsters. Like, there's also aspects of the game that are just there for pleasure, whether that's the desserts you can feed her, or like being able to interact with NPCs and like spending a very valuable resource slot just to have a deeper, more immersive interaction with the game. Like,
Mhm.
it's just like such a such a thoughtfully constructed game, and I think those are little things that stood out to me. Um, yeah, what else
Yeah. Yeah,
what
no,
other
that's
gameplay things should we talk about?
well, I mean, I think you're already talking about the story a little bit, so
Mm,
let's talk like, we can pivot and talk a bit about the story. I mean, like you said, this is a game with basically no dialogue, and that's
mhm,
voiced or text-based. There's not text-based dialogue, like, this is just a game told and very minimal cutscenes, like,
yeah,
probably count on maybe one hand how many, like, actual cutscenes are in the game.
mm,
This is not a story-heavy game, and yet, like, the narrative and themes are constantly coming through in all those little details you mentioned. But the overarching, like, story is pretty straightforward. There's an evil that has taken over the land in the form of these seethed monsters and this defilement that's taken over everywhere, and although it's not really clear to us, like, who Yoshiro was before any of this or why she has been, like, selected as the divine maiden. It's her responsibility to cleanse the land of the defilement, to purge the defilement, and to save the people. And so seems to be positioned as like, yeah, Yoshiro's bodyguard or protector as she goes on this journey. And so
Mhm.
that's what y'all do. Y'all are just going town to town, rescuing people. What I think it's really cool that the game, after you clear a town of defilement, after you complete a chapter, um, that turns into a base that you can then go back
Mhm.
and visit. There's little construction projects to do throughout the base that you can assign villagers to. The number of villagers that are available to assign remains the same as the number of villagers that you saved while you were going through it. So there's some towns, for example, they have 12 villagers that are cocooned, as you were talking about, throughout the level. If you only manage to find and save 8 of them while you're going through with Yoshiro and clearing the defilement, when it turns into a base, there's only 8 people there to assign, and it shows
Mhm.
you that there were 4 more, but they're not here because you didn't save them. Now, in a move that I think is really cool, like, the game is super replayable, so I can go back, I can replay that chapter, I can find those ones that I missed last time, and then I'll have all 12 villagers at my disposal. But I also think it's kind of cool. It's like, oh, I only saved 8. Like, they're not just magically saved. Then
Yeah.
when the towns reset, like those people were lost because we didn't find and save them. Um, but you assign the villagers to the different construction projects. You only have so many villagers to assign. The projects they all take at least one like playing through at least one chapter before they advance, and some of them take 2 or even 3 chapters before they'll advance. And they give you little rewards. Some of them give you what are they called? Musubi, which are
Mhm.
essentially skill points. That's what you use to like level up the different villager classes or to level up So. But others give you the desserts that you feed to Yoshiro. They give you these little plaques that have information about the different enemies on them and just like look really cool. There's like a physical place in your base where the like rack of plaques hangs, and you can go there and just like rifle through the plaques and look at them. Like the game spends so much time and attention on all these little like really tangible details. When you're
Yeah.
at a base, you can go visit, and it's not like I don't know. We talked a little bit about this when you were here with me, but there's a little bit of a tension that I felt sometimes of like, man, this could have just been a menu. Like
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
I'm in this town and I have to run from one end of the town to the other to assign people to these 2 different construction projects. And like all I'm doing is going from point A to point B. But the game
Right.
wants me to do that. And I think that's like really intentional whether you like that or not. Like the game is very intentionally saying like, no, this is a physical place and you're going to have to run across. And a different game could have just made that a menu where I literally just like go into a menu and I click on that building and I assign a couple people to it and that's the end of it.
Right. Right.
And that's all that is. And then it's really just that just becomes points. That just becomes another number go up, another
Mhm.
resource goes into a bucket. But that's so clearly like I think this game, despite the amount of different things that they're doing with it, they very obviously had a very clear vision of like, we want this to feel lived in, we want it to feel embodied,
Yes.
we want it to feel physical, like you could almost touch this place or like
Yes.
feel the vibe of this place and this town that you're in. There's like beautiful music playing. When the villagers aren't assigned to tasks, they're like hanging out, like chilling, or maybe somebody will be
Mhm.
farming, like they're doing tasks and like wandering around. It all looks very artistic, but still realistic. Like it has a very clear art style, but still comes across in a very detailed and realistic way. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, you keep talking about feeding Yoshiro desserts. Do you wanna kinda explain, like, what that looks like and how you do that? Because I think it's, like, kind of powerful.
It's yeah, like, first of all, it's not even like the game like, I guess they tell you that this is a thing, but it's like you can go through the menu and you can pick a dessert to feed her. So anyway, sorry. At the base, there's a tent where you can visit Yoshiro. And you can go to this tent and she has a table set up in front of her. And again, this goes into the kind of intentionality and immersion in the game where you're focusing on different areas of the table. Like one is where your weapons are laid down or where the what are they called? The Mazo talismans are laid out
Mhm.
on their own
Yeah, there's a physical
cushions and
embodiment of the Suba
um
guards of
right.
there's like a like I don't know exactly what it's called, but there's like this tasseled cord that
Mhm.
represents the like dance or like which is your like your primary battle set and like position that you're
Mhm.
gonna take. There's a little bead that represents your archery skill that you have equipped. There's the each of the Mazo talismans that you equip, which at one point in the game you can have 5 equipped at a time, have like an actual like
Mhm.
very detailed like you can actually click on it, spin it around, look at the model. It's a fully like
Right.
3D rendered like little sculpture. And there's
Yes.
like 50 of those fuckers and they are all
Mhm.
unique. They all have a unique little appearance to them. It is so
Yeah.
hyper detailed.
It's gorgeous. And the sound design too, and the weight of it, like, everything feels like you could just reach through the screen and touch it. And, like, we're not exaggerating, like, so back to the desserts. So you can as you're rebuilding the town, there's, one of the projects you can do is to make a dessert happen. And these are all, like they all have really rich descriptions of kind of, like, where the dessert came from, the meaning behind it, if it's used in certain ceremonies, like what that was for, and like things ranging from like like mochi um, with red bean paste inside, or like a sweet rice that's wrapped in like a leaf. Like there's like various like Japanese sweets that you can then access to give as an offering to Yoshiro. And on the one hand, it's like on the surface, it's like you can give her this dessert, it appears on the plate in front of her. And if you focus your camera onto her face, like look, if you look up from the table at her, you can actually watch her slowly and intentionally like pick up the plate, look at it. Like she might like be like, ooh, like kind of smile at it. And then she'll pick up like her chopsticks or her fork and she'll like slowly eat all of it and then put the plate back down. And then that in itself is like its own meditative, like multi-minute process. And the character model for Yoshiro is gorgeously
Yeah.
rendered. I mean, she's got, layers of beautiful cloth and silk. She has jewelry hanging down. She has like a headpiece and she's has a very sweet, like emotive face. And like you feel like this need to like protect her. Like you
Yeah.
really feel that and see like her like almost like her vulnerability and her innocence. But then if you press a button, it pulls up a gorgeously detailed 3D model of the dessert that
Mhm.
you are feeding her. And it's beautiful.
Well, I've
Like
got a fun
it's
little
like
factoid about those actually from the
okay, yes.
from IGN's review, Casey DeFreitas wrote that it like included a detail saying that the collectible sweets were made in real life by the famous Saruya Yoshinobu, a 220-year-old confectioner that's located in
Mm,
Kyoto, Japan. And so they had that company make them and then they scanned them into the in-game models. So they actually like took these desserts, most of which were like are, more specific to the time period.
yeah,
Um, had this confectioner actually make them and then went to
it's
the trouble to
unreal.
scan them into the game. All for this, like, there's there's no gameplay reason to feed Yoshiro desserts.
Yeah,
Like, there's no
yeah.
it's not benefiting any you're not getting a buff,
Mhm,
you're not getting
mhm,
nothing except for the
mhm,
pleasure of watching her enjoy the dessert.
mhm. It's
It's wild.
it's unbelievable. Here's my fun fact. Are
Okay.
you ready for this?
I don't know. Am I? Probably not.
I I was, like, crying earlier, and this is what I'm getting at when I talk about, like, here's what I when I finally could put my finger on what felt so special and unique about this game. So,
Uh-huh.
this is a new series of YouTube videos that Capcom is actually releasing. They've put together this like mini documentary about the making of Kunitsu-Gami.
Oh,
And so
okay,
they
cool.
just released like I think a week ago the first episode. I just saw it today. It
I was gonna
popped
say,
up.
wow, thanks for telling me about it, Spencer.
No, I like I was going I know I was going to tell you about it. Telling you about it now.
I'm just
So
playing.
this it's like the making of Kunitsu-Gami. It's on on Capcom's YouTube channel. And the first episode is I think it's called Setting. So it's about um the setting of the game. Here is the freaking thing.
Okay.
They built the entire game. Like, they built miniatures. Like, every
What?
level was made by hand. Like, they built little buildings, and they made all of the buildings and streets
Were they scanning that in then, or was
and
it
then
just for the
3D scanned
Okay.
everything into the game.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that's why it all feels so real, because it is real. They were like,
They physically
they
made it. Yeah.
so Naoki Ishii is the miniature designer for the game, and then Shuichi Kawada is the director. And, they said it took 2 to 3 months
Yeah.
just to build the
Honestly, that doesn't even
shrine.
sound that long when you think
I
of how
know.
detailed that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it took 2 to 3 months just to build the shrine at the beginning of the game where
Wow.
that big hand thing takes over that shrine where, at the end of the game, you then go back to
Mhm.
cleanse. Just building that one building took 2 to 3 months, and they said they
Yikes.
built it mostly out of used coffee grounds, like, to create the texture of, like um,
Oh,
and,
no.
like
Wait, why did they have to be used?
I guess for, like,
Waste not,
environmental
yeah.
friendly waste not, whatnot, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Um, and, yeah, just they wanted and the director was talking about how the camera is sort of set at a bit further back than you would typically find in a RPG or like a battle hack and slash kind of focused game. Like they intentionally set the camera back a bit because they wanted players to feel like they were looking into like a world or like into
Mm,
like a diorama. And it really feels like that.
yeah, mission accomplished, I would say.
And okay, that's not even it. This is the
Okay.
even crazier
Lay
part.
it on me.
All of the effects are practical effects, like the fire or like, the
So, like, they made them
fireworks.
physically and scanned them in again still.
Yeah, like they had, so the, Hiroyuki Wada was the physical effects supervisor, and he literally would, like, set off fireworks and, like, record that, and then, like, they scan that into the game, and, like so, like, all of the lighting of the lanterns and fireworks going off or, like, bombs that go off, it's all practical effects, like,
Yeah, that's
what the
wild.
actual
That's wild.
what
But it
the
explains a lot because the game has a very unique and distinct look
Yes,
to it. And I
yes.
guess hearing all this, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's somewhere, it's not, it doesn't quite look like stop motion animation, right?
Right,
But it's like
right.
somewhere in between the smoothness that you would be used to seeing and stop motion. It's like, so it lives somewhere in that in between. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
wow, that's
yeah,
really impressive.
yeah.
Um, and I think it was worth it. I mean, that must have been
Oh,
so much
yes.
so much detailed work, but, like, it does come through in the game. Even though I couldn't have told
Mhm.
you that that's exactly why it had that effect, like, I could look at it and say, like, "Yeah, there's something unique about the way this game moves and looks and the, like, lived in an immersive way that it feels to, yeah, exist in this space."
Yeah.
And just the intentionality of all the details, like, it's
Yeah,
bananas, like, at every
it's
turn,
unreal.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
real.
It
Yeah, they said
and it's so unreal, it's real.
it's so unreal, it's
So real,
real.
it's unreal?
It's so real, it's unreal. Yeah, they said they weren't trying to recreate any specific area of Japan, but the team literally traveled all over the country to kind of get inspiration from different rural settings. And I thought this quote was sweet from, Ishii-san, who's the miniature designer. He said, "This game was made by mixing two completely opposite entities of computer graphics and real life effects and miniatures, and we hope that everyone will enjoy the new world that we made." Because they literally took all of this inspiration and made their own
Yeah,
world, physically built it, and then scanned it into a computer and then let us play around in it. Like,
yeah.
this isn't just a tower defense game. This is a piece of art.
Oh yeah, it's
Like,
absolutely a piece of art.
um, and Kawada-san, the director, he was talking about how he felt like he wanted to bring to life what he calls the unique atmospheres that I experienced as a kid. He's the type of person, he says, I got excited when looking at that kind of art, like miniatures, that I'm sure many people can relate to, even in this generation. I hope that everyone will take a close look at the effects because they are real. It's real. I'm sorry. I'm just, that really, I think, today, especially in today's game making landscape, we're always talking about, oh, like what's the latest technology that's going to automate the kind of work that
Mm,
traditionally has been done by hand? How is
yeah,
AI going
yeah,
to quicken and replace the
yep,
painstaking work of humans? And this is
yep.
a game that is saying, no, actually, what would it look like if humans spent months and months and months painstakingly building a world and that is simply empowered to be enjoyed by others through the use of computers? Like, really, it feels like I might venture to say that the computer graphics are secondary to the hand built work that was put into this game. Not just the sets, but even, as Jamie, you were talking about, the food was made by people and then scanned in. It's like, this is such a rebuke to this idea that the next best game has to be created through cutting edge technology. Like, of course, it's cutting edge technology to be able to 3D scan something, but so much of this was built by people by hand, and it's just so breathtaking to see that. Like, it cannot be replicated um, by any graphic capability. I mean, like looking at these models, it's just like it's breathtaking. So
Yeah.
that's my that's my TED Talk.
that's that's a pretty good TED Talk. Yeah, I want to check out that YouTube series. That sounds super fucking fascinating. Um, I just yeah, really, yeah, it's just really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Artistically, definitely the art of this game is the thing that's gonna stick with me, that I appreciated the absolute most.
Mhm.
The gameplay was enjoyable, it grabbed me so much more than I thought it would. At the same time, I definitely had some frustrations with it at times. They do
Yeah.
try to do a lot. It's a lot of genres mixed together, the tower defense, the RPG nature, the resource management. You've got that day versus night cycle. You've got time
Mhm.
is ticking, and you only have so much time to do things. We kind of glossed over this, but you also have uh, a builder, like a carpenter, who travels with you in
Oh, yes.
Yoshiro,
Mhm.
who you assign projects within the city, and they only have so much time in a day to do so many things, but they're building different contraptions that exist in the village that might help you hold off the seed in the evening. And uh, all of those different things contribute to like a really complex setup for how you're going to combat that and like strategically respond to that. And then at the same time, but then at other points, the game will kind of take away your ability to do all of that and just put you in a situation where you're forced to use and
Mm.
only and really rely on So's combat ability. And I felt like every time the game put me in that situation where I had to pretty much just rely on it fell a little bit short. The third
Mhm.
person
Mhm.
action mechanics, while being fun, are not as precise as I felt like they needed
Right.
to be able to really feel like I could control in the way that I wanted to if I was going head to head with like a big boss type enemy. And the game does have boss fights pretty consistently. Now, a lot of those boss fights, so basically it'll be like you'll do a village and then there'll be a separate chapter after that where it's a boss fight. Most of the boss fights, you still have your group of villagers with you to fight the boss with you. And that was cool just in the sense that it changed up the strategy. Like, it's a very different strategy protecting Yoshiro from Seethe in the town versus fighting a boss, and what type of villagers do I need? What roles do I need to assign? Am I going to play this more aggressive? Maybe I'm no
Mhm.
longer concerned about having them hold back and watch Yoshiro. I'm going to have them up on the boss while I watch it. Different opens up a lot of different opportunities for strategy, but there's multiple
Yeah.
points in the game where they're just like, nope, you as So have to do this.
Yeah.
And basically every time they put me in that position, I got frustrated because
Yeah.
So just doesn't quite control as cleanly as you would want from the type of action game that they're trying to make. Like,
Right.
kind of unforgiving, like, block and parry windows, enemies, especially the boss enemies, hit very hard. You can get kind
Mhm.
of locked into the move that you're doing, so there's a lot to consider in terms of timing, and maybe if the whole game had been designed around that, you could develop that skill set to get really good at that, but because for most of the game I can ignore that, when it forces me to do it, I just got annoyed. I don't know.
Mhm.
Did you
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
any complaints about the game or any of that?
Yeah, I think similarly, it was like, I felt like control of So was probably the sometimes felt like the weakest part. Like, I could I was often, you know, executing my perfect combination and then just completely miss the target, because I
Yeah.
was slightly off on my alignment, and in a way, the combat's very beautiful because, So, like Yoshiro, moves in a sword play that is like a
Yeah,
dance.
it's actually
Um
all, and they call the game a Kagura action strategy game, and Kagura, it means, like, god entertainment or god music in Japanese, and
mm,
it's a type of Shinto ritual ceremonial dance that
okay,
they're
okay,
they're
cool.
using to, like, that inspire, like, So's battle moveset. So it's yeah,
Okay.
it's cool what they're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's visually stunning, and I think, because of the type of movement, like I think I often felt like I was too slow, or, if I executed the combo and not the perfect timing, it was totally missing or just not like it would take several seconds to kind of recover. And I think, one could certainly argue that that's part of mastering the game. Like, I'm not saying, like,
Mhm.
I
I'm
get
willing to
that.
accept that maybe I'm
I'm
just
willing to
bad
accept
at
that. Sure. Yeah, sure.
it.
And at the same time, yeah, I think those are my most frustrating moments where, like, you know, and and again, I think this falls into just the immersion of the game is, like, So's running speed, like, when Yoshiro would be like, "Help, getting attacked," I would be like, "Run faster!"
Get
Like,
there!
you're just a little guy with your little legs trying to go
Mhm.
as fast as you can,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so when all of that is stripped away, when you don't have the support of the villagers, you can't really strategize, um, that felt like maybe I was playing a different game, and so I would agree with that take that made things challenging for me as well,
But I do think
and
overall that's a small gripe for me. Sorry, I didn't wanna cut
yeah,
you off.
no, no, I think for me, like, yes, a very small gripe. I think, and again, and I'm willing to chalk this up to a skill issue, I
Same.
think
Oh,
the
I'm always willing to chalk it up to a skill issue. It's like, is game bad or am
crystal
I bad?
management,
Probably
yeah.
me bad.
Right, it's probably the me that is bad. Um, but crystal management, like, there were so many moments where I would be so, like, as we talked about, like, to get through one village, there might be 2 segments of, like, you get to one gate, and then you're only halfway through the level, you've gotta get to the next one,
Mhm.
and it would be like, "Okay, I have, like, 20 crystals left, so I'm gonna have to be here for several more days," like, painstakingly, collecting 20 crystals at a time from these crystal plants that regenerate overnight, and from the paltry enemies that we kill overnight, like, it's not nearly enough to get to the
Yeah.
next point, and I found that, like, I'm not someone who generally wants to replay a level. So as Jamie was talking about earlier, I think really it's not a suggestion that you replay levels,
Yeah.
it's a requirement to get ahead. You're gonna need to do most of the levels at least twice to have enough resources to actually unlock, future levels, and so,
Yeah.
like, it's very much designed for replayability. There are certain goals and challenges like, oh, get through this same level without Yoshiro taking any damage. Get through this level that requires you to light a bunch of lanterns to see. Do it without lighting any of them. Like there's like different.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite
And
levels were. Oh, go ahead. What were you gonna
I
say?
was just gonna say, I was just gonna add on that, and the completing of those challenges will earn you either the Masubi, which are the skill points, so that you can level up your villagers or so, or they'll earn you Mazo talismans to add to
Yeah,
your pool of potential buffs. So
yeah,
anyway, so they
and
do reward you
crystals.
and
Yeah.
crystals that you'll get just naturally through doing the level again. So they try to make replayability very rewarding. The boss fights
Hmm.
are also replayable, although those are all time-based challenges. So, like, beat this boss in less than 2 minutes or whatever. It varies based on the boss. But anyway, sorry. Keep
Yeah.
going.
So y'all know I didn't do any of those boss. I'm like, it's already stressful enough. You got guys coming at me from every direction all night. I am absolutely not going to attempt to recreate this boss battle that I barely made it through by the skin of my teeth in under 2 minutes. Just not going to happen.
Oh my gosh.
No, I was going to say like one of my favorite levels were the ones where there's ones where you're on a boat and you have to
Yeah.
like get across a lake or just survive on the water overnight. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't know why I brought it up, but I love that. I just thought it was really like a really fun mix up
Yeah.
of the dynamic, and
Yeah,
it
it was definitely a change in in strategy. The game presents you
yeah.
the levels are all designed really again, so much intentionality in this game. I think the levels are designed really smartly to constantly you could not just pick a strategy and use that strategy across the entire game.
Mhm.
Not even a
Mhm.
little bit. You definitely had to be thinking about what roles do I need in this specific situation and where does it make the most sense to place people?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that may be the one place where it grated on me because I'm just typically I don't have the attention span typically to wanna constant like, to be redoing something over and over.
Yeah.
I think that's why the Souls games were never my thing because that's kind of how you get better is by getting up again and re-going through that fight. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that was one area, but again, minor gripes, just so minor.
Yeah. The challenges mostly did work for me, and I did the vast majority of them until I got down to the last few chapters, and I just didn't
Mhm.
but, like, there's very few that like, maybe 3 challenges in the entire game that I didn't complete, and there's, like, 3 for every level, so there's quite a lot of them. But I kind of I liked going back and seeing if I could get all of the challenges in one replay, even though
Mm,
sometimes they're kind of at odds with each other or like trying to do all 3 at once is gonna make it tougher, but I kinda liked that, and especially since a lot of the times when I'd be going back with higher level troops than I went through the first time. The, like, basic seed fighting was usually easier, and the challenge was more coming from the limitations that I was imposing on myself to meet the proposed challenge. So, I don't know,
mhm.
I enjoyed those for the most part, and I think that probably speaks more to generally, no, I don't like replaying things in games, but I do have the, like, trophy hunter 100%
Mhm.
achievement, sickness. So I was compelled in that regard. I think if I had been playing this on PlayStation, I would have been even more compelled,
Yeah,
because that's, like, the ecosystem that I have trophies in. I'm really not
yeah.
as bought in on the Xbox side for getting the
Mm,
achievements, so I was able to let some of that go and not
yeah,
pursue it to the point of, complete, loss of mind
yeah,
and
yeah,
temper. Yeah.
yeah.
Um Do you wanna talk about the story at all? What did you
Yeah,
walk
let's talk
away
about
with, like,
yeah,
as
yeah,
kind of, like, the main themes of this game? Like, what do you
yeah,
feel like this, was saying or taught you?
yeah, totally. I think, I mean, right from the beginning, if I remember correctly, I think it talks about how, like, these seeds have come and descended upon the land because the people have become too, um like, they've sort of forgotten that everything they have is because of the bounty of the earth and the generosity of nature, and they've sort of become too prideful and too greedy in kind of their pillaging of the land. They're overusing resources. They're setting off like fireworks and scaring animals and like destroying the nature around them and just taking and taking and taking. Um, and so like I think for me, I thought, you know, it's definitely a poignant message in our world today where we're, you know, entering this period of what is likely to be a climate or already is like a climate crisis. Like um this kind of reminder that nature, there's no controlling it. There's no w- dominating it at a certain point. Like it will it will come get you. So I think there was an element of that for me of just sort of like letting not not paying attention to the effect we're having on the earth, and acting as though there's no need to sort of check ourselves and only take what's necessary, like the fact that like this idea that we can just go on in perpetuity without any consequences. I think that came through for me. And sort of like what happens when you leave a wound untreated, it begins to fester, and what comes out of it is ugly and frightening and and corruptive. I think that was a theme for me, as well as sort of like for Yoshiro, it felt like there were themes of kind of like self-sacrifice, like what it means to give of yourself to people, um, many of whom might not ever know you or thank you. And kind of like when you do give so much of yourself, how that can hurt you as well, and how like taking in everyone's pain and everyone's mistakes and other people's trauma, how you can internalize that and it can in turn like damage you. That was probably like a very literal interpretation of what was going on. And then I think for the relationship between So and Yoshiro as well, there was, I mean, for me personally, there was lots of thoughts about like gender and kind of like how we reconcile various parts of ourselves and what we allow various parts of ourselves to be. And also kind of like what it can be like to sort of like open your mind to the possibility that you are capable of giving yourself everything you need, sometimes without even realizing it. Um, that was a lot. You say some things.
No, I like all those reads a lot. I feel like I got a little lost in the sauce on this one. I just like while I was playing it, and I think part of like just everything that's been going on for me this summer, I was not like having very deep thoughts and was
Mhm.
just enjoying the mechanics and the grind of it. And
Yeah.
then we got to that ending together and I was just kind of like, huh. And no spoilers, no spoilers,
Yeah.
but the ending did leave me a little just like, huh. So I really like, yeah, I like all that stuff that you're naming, and I could see all of that. I would be lying if I said I was feeling anything that deeply personally while I was playing the game. I
Mhm.
think more of the stuff that I was feeling is some of the stuff that we've already touched on is just those the feelings of the deep attention to detail, the deeper like respect
Mhm.
and care that the developers brought to the game, and just all of the detail that was so immersive and made me feel so connected to the game and just like the experience of playing it so much. Like I was just genuinely having so much real fun just
Yeah.
engaging with the game on a very base level. And that's pretty uncommon for me to like a game just on the gameplay where I'm not having like that deeper emotional resonance with the story that I'm being told. This is one of those rare instances where I was like, "Okay, I'm cleansing this mountain.
Yeah.
Brain off in that regard. Like, I had a podcast on for part of the time that I was playing the
Mhm.
game, but the actual experience of playing it just felt so grounding and and I was able to like really focus on it. I've been having a lot of
Mm.
anxiety, so it's been really hard for me to like focus on things. Like,
Mhm.
I'm constantly checking my phone and shit. It's like when I had this
Mhm.
game on, I could just be in this game, probably looking like an
Yeah.
absolute like Neanderthal, like mouth hanging open, like watching Yoshiro eat her desserts. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It was therapeutic for me in that sense, that it was like a
Yeah.
great way to just like give me something to focus on that wasn't like this just the stress and anxiety of my brain. Um
Yeah.
and then I did think it was cool, like, all of the Japanese folklore,
Mhm.
instilled in the game. All the plaques that you get that have the little backstories of all the different Seethe enemies, were really interesting. The fact that so many of those, were like, and I don't know how much of this, like, ties back to the real folklore, but most of the creatures that you fight were at one time
Mm.
humans who had
Mhm.
done things to anger the gods or to disrespect other people or the land, and had
Mhm.
therefore been, like, punished in some way by becoming this gross little demon creature. And so I think that probably speaks to those themes that you were drawing on, of this narrative around, like, yeah, how we're taking care of each other and how we're taking care of the land. One little detail I wanted to shout out too that I thought was really cool, um, was that after you, cleanse a village and you go and visit it, like, as your base, if you open up the map, you can see all of the villagers on the map, like, where they're standing, and you can actually cycle through them and click a button to, like, read details about that villager, and for every single town, of which there's, like, what, 20, 15 to 20 towns, and every single
Yeah.
villager within those towns, which most of them have anywhere from 6 to 12
Mhm.
villagers, there is a little 2 to 6 sentence write up about that villager and their life.
Yeah.
And it's just another way in which this game provides so much detail. And I can't say that I read every single one of those, but I read quite a few of them. And they're all just like, this guy is like the silly town drunk, but
Mhm.
people love him because he's mostly harmless, and also he looks out for these people's kid. Like,
Right.
it just, like, tells you, like, this little bit about this person and, like, what their role in the community is and how their neighbors see them.
Yeah.
And it was really, I don't know, it was really special. Just, like, all these characters that
Mhm.
the developers thought it was important that all these people had, like, this real tie to each other
Yes.
and to the land. Um, and then I don't know, maybe it's, I haven't unpacked this fully, but maybe it's like saying something about like when you turn the villagers into their roles in the fight, they just become like a mask and like they completely change who they are, and then
Mhm.
they go back to being like normal people. I don't know if there's
Right.
anything in there about like how war changes us, but
Right. Yeah.
uh
Yeah.
yeah, those are my deep thoughts about
Mhm. Yeah.
Kunitsu-Gami.
No, I was thinking about that too, the masks and how, like, yes, when they take on this role, like, they fully become that, and they become like, if they're a sumo wrestler, they become very strong, or if they're an archer, like, you see them, like, testing their bow, or a woodcutter, they're swinging their axe, and then they go back to being, um, just like regular people after, and yeah, like, something about how war changes us, or maybe about how we assume, like, when we're filling a role and wearing a mask, like, we're masking in certain contexts, and then, like, who are we when we're allowed to take that mask off or put that weapon down? Like,
Mhm.
what takes its place? I don't know, it's just, like, again, there's just, like, so many, like, cool little details,
Yeah.
in this game. I think too, the music is,
Oh
like, a big
yeah,
thing
the
for me,
music.
like, especially it's, like, 'cause, like, during the day it's like the music is, like, calm and peaceful through the
But as
morning.
sunset
As the
approaches,
sunset approaches, it's like, I'm, like, freaking out, like
like strings and horns, and like you're like
Yeah.
running around, like, oh my god,
Yeah.
am I ready? Where's Yoshiro? Yoshiro, stop!
Yeah.
No, why did you go that
Yeah.
far?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it's just yeah, everything,
Some of the boss fights too have like this crazy, like all there's like just random boss fights that have like this crazy jazz like infused music
yeah.
that's just wild. And then you go to the villages like when they're the bases, like after you've liberated them, and it's just the most peaceful, soothing, like I could just leave that up in the background all day. Just
Mhm.
this beautiful
It's
little
beautiful.
music with the sounds of like bubbling streams and like chickens rustling around and just
Yeah.
gorgeous. Yeah, great sound design.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
fun game. Should people check this out, you think?
Yeah, I think, it's um like, actions speak louder than words, and,
Mm,
like, this is a game that has little to no dialogue, but there's so much in action, just not even just the combat, but in, like, the interactions outside of it, the interactions that you of the as the player have with the various UI and the elements of the game, and it just really feels like, in those intentional, layered actions, like, this is, like, a very beautiful game that says so much without having to say much at all, and I'm really glad we played it. So, yeah, people should play this game.
yeah. Yep. I think so too. Um, there's a Ethan Gotch, who wrote the review for Kotaku, compared it to feeling like you're playing through a series of poems.
Mm,
I thought
yes.
was apt way to describe it too. But yeah, really beautiful, intentional little game. That just feels so refreshing. It's not a sequel. It's not some huge open world game. It kind of
Mhm,
came out of nowhere, and yet it still like clearly has a lot of budget and time and love put into it. Um, yeah, I want to support little like mid-tier games like this because
mhm.
I don't know anything about the budget on this or anything, but this feels like a very much more like sustainably like developed game than a lot of the ones that we get. Uh and I think that's cool, and that it does feel like such an interesting little swing that's
Yeah,
not trying to ape whatever is out there that's making all the most money. It's not a live service game. It's just trying
mhm.
to give you an interesting little single player experience. That's really good. So people should check it out.
Hell yeah.
Go play Kunitsu-Gami, but time is up for today's session of Pixel Therapy. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope that listening to our thoughts and feelings gave you some thoughts and feelings of your own. If you want more Pixel Therapy, come check us out at patreon.com/pixeltherapypod, where you can sign up for free to stay up to date on everything we have going on, including our weekly streaming schedule. Or you can subscribe for as little as $2 a month and snag that sweet monthly bonus episode. Also, be sure to check out our Let's Play series, Pixel Therapy Plays, on the Pixel Therapy Pod YouTube channel. You can subscribe and ring the bell there to get notifications every time we go live. And of course, you can also support the show by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts and following us on Twitter at Pixel Therapy Pod. And no, I'm never going to call it X. Fuck you, Elon. That stuff is just as important, and we appreciate it just as much.
Finally, since we like to put our money and our energy where our mouth is, we end every episode with a recommended side quest. As we have been doing, please, 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 don't forget about Palestine. Um, Operation Olive Branch is a network put together um, by grassroots volunteers to amplify Palestinian voices and bring attention to their GoFundMe's. So you can visit tinyurl.com/op Olive Branch. We also have an Instagram page at Operation Olive Branch, but check it out, share it with a friend, throw some cash here or there if you have it. Every dollar counts, and folks are really materially surviving based on the help of folks like you and me. So that's Operation Olive Branch, tinyurl.com/OP Olive Branch. And of course, keep calling for a ceasefire and an end to this genocide.
Yes, 100%. Thank you for that side quest, Spencer. That is our show for today, folks. So go forth, run a story mission, level up some stats, and don't forget to hug an NPC every now and then, or feed him a little dessert, maybe. Feed him a little tasty treat. We'll be back soon with some more Pixel Therapy. One of these days, we'll decide what notes we're trying to hit there. Bye-bye.
Bye.